It's our great pleasure to welcome to our 2021 Online Trend Summit CEO of Foundation Earth, Cliona, Howie. Thanks for joining us today, Cliona. It's great to welcome you to our virtual stage.
Thank you, Charles. Fantastic to be here. Really excited to be a part of this event and couldn't be more pleased to share with everyone what Foundation Earth is and what we're up to.
Brilliant. Well, the impact that our current food system is having on the environment and its role in climate change is increasingly apparent, not only to industry, but also to consumers. But if, as a consumer, you want to reduce your impact, how do you go about doing that? And we know that one of the biggest challenges for consumers is having simple and easy to understand information to be able to make a positive and informed choice at the point of purchase. So hence the reason for inviting you to join us today to talk about Foundation Earth, your ambition as a business, why all of this is important, the methodology behind the Eco Impact Score, which I know everyone will want to hear about, the pilot that's taking place, the planned future rollouts, and the automation that will support that, and of course how they can get involved. If, as you're joining the summit today as a Trend Hub subscriber, you can find out more about the topics that will be covered in this keynote from Cliona in our 2022-23 trends framework within the mega trend Mind Your Step and the sub-trend that we've called Carbon Truths on Trend Hub. So without further ado, Cliona, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Charles. So fantastic to be here with everyone. And today I'm going to talk to you a little about who is Foundation Earth. What are these pilots and that Charles is referring to, and how does it contribute to transformation of our food system? Foundation Earth primarily has been set up as an independent, non-profit organization with global ambitions to change the way we put environmental scores on food and beverage products. Initially, we want to be able to enable more sustainable buying choices. So really putting something out there that's tangible and practical for consumers. But there's a bigger picture around this, of course. How do we transform the food industry, and what kind of role does environmental labeling play in that transformation? So how have we done this? Foundation Earth has been a lot of groundwork put into place because we've had to understand that labeling is not new, right? Environmental labeling or understanding different types of labeling certification schemes to give consumers better on-pack information has been around for ages. There's been trials and errors, and there's even been labels that are successfully working today. But are we truly capturing the full environmental impact? And is it being harmonized? Is it scalable? And is it truly giving us an understanding of where the impacts sit? And is it finally changing consumer behavior? So to do this, Foundation Earth pulled together an independent scientific committee to find out what are the best systems out there for actually carrying out the environmental assessment so that we can identify and be precise about where those environmental impacts are. And we've also put together an industry advisory group that has a lot of experience, a lot of knowledge in labeling and certifying their products and how it lands and how consumers react to that. I mentioned that we identified two leading systems. Those leading systems are life cycle assessment-based evaluation systems that say and cover what is the actual entire life cycle of a product or beverage impact on a variety of environmental indicators. We chose two systems and we're using both of them. And I'm going to go back and give you more information on the pilots that we're doing to say, how can we take that information and then put it cleanly and simply on pack, as you're seeing here on your screen today, with a traffic light system that has a coloring and a letter associated to the actual environmental score. So as I said, we're trying to create a harmonized, scalable environmental label. As you see here, it's a traffic light system where it's easily recognized. This has been trialed in others like the Nutri-Score, where consumers they have about 9 seconds max to identify and be able to associate the score to the product. What is incredibly important to Foundation Earth is the credibility of this score. So the science behind it. I already mentioned life cycle assessment, but our commitment, our deep commitment is to the science and knowing that there is no perfect life cycle assessment methodology out there today. What does that mean? It means that we have to understand how life cycle assessment is evolving and growing. what we understand about environmental impacts. What we knew about environmental impacts 5 years ago is different today, particularly post-COVID. And how do we pull that together and consolidate into a letter? Foundation Earth is undertaking 2 pilots. One we call indicative labeling, which is using one of the 2 systems that I mentioned. And I'll go into that in a moment, but using one of the 2 systems, putting it through the life cycle assessment machine and getting the score. The second pilot, which is really interesting, is saying, what happens if we combine these 2 different methodologies? There's no perfect life cycle assessment methodology. However, we strongly feel that these 2 methodologies are some of the best out there. Can we get a third, more robust, more optimal methodology if we actually fuse them and run a trial of putting products through both of them, but looking at the combined impact? Communicating that impact is essential. Understanding how to have a user-friendly communication around that. Also understanding the education awareness that goes along with understanding what the score means, understanding what's behind the score. So we've designed this label and a way to share the information with consumers to make it as easy as possible. Here you can see some initial mock-ups on products that are actually out there on shelf today in the UK right now, MyTP milk. And this is what it would look like to you if you were to go into the shop and find it. You'll see that letter range from A to G, and you'll also be able to go in and find a QR code to say, what does that letter mean, right? If it's scored an A, what does that A actually mean? Where does the impact sit? Identically, it's the same if it's a lesser score, a D, an E. Why is this a D and E? I really like this product. It tastes good to me. It has the right price. So why am I choosing a product that has a low environmental score? And where does that environmental score come from? You can find that out through digital information. This is what we call our online certificates. So you see an example here on this mobile phone where the score is explained to you and broken down to you with the ingredients involved, with what transport's involved, what plastic packaging is involved, et cetera, to give the score that you're seeing on pack. You can find this information easily through your mobile or by taking a QR code. So going back a little bit and talking about this life cycle assessment, how is it done? How is it carried out? And why is it some of the most robust science out there? And how have you been able to identify these 2 leading systems? The main thing I want to communicate here is that the life cycle assessment the systems that we have chosen at Foundation Earth have a very, very strong priority for using what we call primary data. That allows for a depth of precision that is not currently available in other scores. This means it's a tighter view on the supply chain. It's digging deeper into really being able to locate very, very carefully across the very wide supply chain that goes into products, because there's a huge diversity of ingredients involved that are sourced from many different places. So we go in as deep as possible to use what we call as primary data and not taking average scores. What does that mean? That means that when you say, where does this tomato come from? You're placing a specific place of origin. You're calculating a specific transport carbon cost. And that's called primary data, pulling that into the eco score, rather than taking average cost, meaning that the average transport of a tomato is X. So that difference of primary versus secondary data gives a much more precise eco score. These eco scores need to be recertified yearly because things change, details change, ingredients are substituted in and out, etc. So they do require a yearly upgrade. Talking about that supply chain and understanding where that impact lies, as you can see here in the image shown, is that we really break it down into what we call kind of nodes. So all the different nodes in a supply chain, going as far back as you can at literally primary production. All these insights are pulled into that digital information that you can have access to, and you can really dig and figure out and understand, what am I eating? Where did it come from? And what kind of score does it have? Really, really importantly, beyond that, and talking about the bigger picture about transforming our food industry, is producers, retailers, they can actually use this information to say, all right, if I have this kind of precise information, I can now take an informed decision based on real science to make changes. So this is where we're ideally really looking to get, is saying, how do we turn a C score into an A score? I mentioned we have two different pilots. They're both extremely robust scientific methodologies, but one is using indicative labeling across certain environmental categories, and the second is a different methodology looking at a different variety of environmental indicators and looking to fuse the two together. So in pilot one, and you can see here some of the participating brands that are currently active in scoring their products, and some of them already have products on shelves. And this is looking at impact categories, so environmental impact categories that include all, like I said, primary production, so farming, processing, packaging, transport, the carbon implications, water usage, also water pollution impacts, and really importantly, which something is we're understanding better every single day, is what are the biodiversity impacts? We now know that biodiversity impacts is not an indirect impact on our health, but a more direct impact on our health. These life cycle assessment stages, the farming, processing, packaging, and transport, go into detail across all those specific environmental areas of water, carbon, and biodiversity. This is where really the process is resource intensive. It takes a lot of investigation work, working with brands, working with their suppliers, mapping out that supply chain to get a real systems view of the entire supply chain around each individual product. We split it up by stage. We look at each of the impact areas. We map this all out. Everything is quantified, of course, and put into the calculations where we then benchmark it against a global market to make sure that things make sense, that there's not odd variables in the whole systems map. We look at how to weight different things across the different stages, and we pull that together at the end, and then we consolidate into giving one single grade. In the pilot 2, there is also a prioritization and a focus on primary data. However, we're testing and trialing if we go further. So if we include an even broader sense of environmental categories or environmental impact categories, how do those two compare? Now, for those of you that are focused on kind of European progress and European agenda from the Commission on this, this pilot 2 is aligned and designed to be extremely aligned with the PEF, the product environmental footprinting. So there's a difference of one is looking for very deep primary data, one is broadening in a horizontal way the number of environmental impact categories they're looking at. So here you can see the difference. There's 16 categories taken into account, but there is a compromise where in many cases secondary data is needed to be able to do that. So Foundation Earth is asking that the question is, if we combine these two different methodologies, what happens? Would we get a more robust actual score on pack? How does it affect the accuracy of that pack? Is the science more robust? And can we really develop an exciting new third methodology that has a deeper depth and wider breadth? In that pilot 2, the process is very similar, as you can imagine. There's just 16 impact categories, and it also comes out to one final score. When Foundation Earth was assessing how environmental labeling schemes have worked thus far and where the current gaps and challenges are, apart from bringing a new type of agent to the scene as an independent nonprofit, we identified that life cycle assessment-based environmental labeling is resource intensive, meaning cost and the amount of engagement across the supply chain. This takes time, which raises the costs, which therefore makes it very difficult for the majority of producers, suppliers, retailers to get involved. How do we address this? Foundation Earth has embarked on a very exciting journey of building a tech alliance to bring a technological solution to meet this challenge. We are aiming to bring the first scalable, automated life cycle assessment labeling solution to the market by 2022. We are carrying out pilots currently to test that technological solution. We're working with tech partners that you can see on the screen here to be able to make that reality, to make it accessible, and to understand how much will it actually reduce the cost and speed up and accelerate the process. This is looking very, very positive. We're very excited about this. Our industry group is very excited about this because this is a game changer. This means that LCAs based on primary data, which has a more scientifically proven and robust eco score, will be able to offer to the wider market, bringing environmentally labeling to the mainstream. Talking a little bit about Foundation Earth and the structure. So up till now, environmental labels, there's been many, many different schemes, many different trials. Some of them have been government-led, some of them have been industry-led. And what the idea with Foundation Earth was to say, what happens if there's a new agent that drives this agenda? And what happens if that agent is independent, nonprofit, and is literally just looking to improve the science behind it and scale it as much as possible? This vision came from our founder, Dennis Lynn, who started these kinds of discussions almost 3 years ago now, representing a Northern Irish food production company, but then looking out across his supply chain and looking to others and other scientists, researchers, et cetera, and asking, why hasn't this been done? What are the missing gaps and challenges that haven't yet been addressed or met to really bring out to the market a harmonized label that works across the board? So we set up the structure of Foundation Earth. It was officially launched in June of 2021, this year, but really started full steam ahead in September with pilots with a whole host of brands undertaking commitment to that Foundation Earth label. So there you can see that there's board members. We have an independent scientific committee led by Professor Chris Elliott and other research and scientists that are across Europe. We have an industry advisory group that shows a very strong but diverse representation across producers, retailers of the food industry that are very committed to transformation, have an incredible amount of experience on previous trials, but also on customer, client, consumer engagement, which is fundamental to the Foundation Earth label being successful. I really would like to take this time to say, are you interested? Do you want to know more? Get in touch. We'd love to hear from you. You can find information on our website. You can also write directly to us. And we would love to understand how can we work with you to help transform the food industry, but bringing these new environmental score to market on products across Europe. Thank you for your interest. Thank you for your time. Charles.
Cliona, a huge thank you from Team TFP and the 2021 Summit audience for sharing the great work, amazing work, really, that Foundation Earth and clearly your partners have been undertaking in the recent past. It's really helped, I'm sure, definitely for me, I'm sure the audience as well, for kind of debunking some of the methodology. But also, I think one of the things that really struck me is it's not just about creating visibility for consumers, but I can see how it will create a change momentum, how it will inspire innovation and new ways in food and drink, and how it can play a significant role in helping us as an industry, but also through consumers at the point of purchase to tackle some of the biggest issues within our existing food system. So a huge thank you, Cliona, for joining us today. Really, really thought-provoking keynote. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Charles. It's been very exciting to be here. I think especially in the build up to COP26, that this is an exciting moment to bring tangible, practical tools to make a difference and to transformation.